Hey, we're doing it.
Hey.
Now we're doing it. We're live I'm inside the chat window again for Fantasy Books and Games Tuesday comic book preview. We're here. We're going to talk about comic books. They're coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, all new stuff.
Let's talk about that. Let me see if I remember how this thing works. Hey there. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
We'll fix
We
this.
didn't prep this one.
We'll fix it. There you go.
There we
Look at
go.
that.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
Beautiful.
That looks terrible. I'm going to fix it while you talk about the book.
So, like we normally do, I'm going to show off a couple of books that are coming out tomorrow that I haven't necessarily read, but I'm looking forward to, or I want to highlight them in some way. First up, actually,
Way better.
this is a book that I have read, and I like to highlight it because it's a good book. This is the collected edition of West of Sundown. This book is by Tim Seeley and I forget the artist's name. Aaron Campbell. Here we are.
How could you forget Aaron Campbell?
I know, right? But this is a cool book. It's basically a weird Western. Main character is a vampire, and there's a vampire hunter who is a Frankenstein monster. There are werewolves. There's just all kinds of like classic, like the Universal monsters, but set in a Wild West setting. And it's just really good, full of action and intrigue and suspense and
like
romance.
These are all things I like.
Yeah, this
They're all
is
things
a
I
good.
enjoy.
Like the genre is called Weird Western because it's like kind of a Western, kind of a horror, but not really either. It's just like a blending of the two. But it's a really good book. Highly recommended. This is volume 2 that collects issues 6 through 10 that's coming out tomorrow. And if you haven't read the book, highly recommend it. This is volume 1 should be available also. Definitely a book worth reading.
You should read it.
All right. Next up are some books that I'm super excited to check out. First of all, Dan, are you familiar with Lupin the Third?
I'm not. Hey, Octorp, how's it going? It's both. It's Weird West stuff is my favorite right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Weird West
Awesome.
is the best.
Weird West is the best. I don't know what this book is. It looks like Fish Called Wanda to me.
Wow, that's interesting that you went there. Not really, but I love that movie. So
Yes.
No, this is a classic manga / anime, Lupin the Third. It came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
Very, very influential. Just in the Japanese industry. One of the most famous Lupin the Third movies came out in the late 70s, and it was directed by a Mr. Hayao Miyazaki, who went on to form Studio Ghibli, which then they did a lot of famous movies like My Neighbor Totoro, Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away. Like the list goes on, honestly. But this is where he started, was with Lupin the Third, and it's a really good comic. It's basically Lupin is the world's most famous thief, and it's just this is his like thief troupe. There's a guy that's a samurai, a guy that's like a gangster, and a sexy femme fatale, and they just go on adventures trying to steal things. Like classic. I like the older Japanese art because it's before a lot of the artists kind of like solidified the style of what manga and anime looks like. So it has like some unique cartooning to it that's, I would say it is influenced by a lot of Western art. It's really weird, it's funny, it's really good stuff. So these books, this one that's put out right now, this is just like a collection, like a greatest hits collection, basically. Okay. This is volume 2, and these are just select stories, just like classic old Lupin books. Good stuff, excellent stuff if you're just looking for something different to read. And if you like Japanese manga, and like a lot of kids come into our store and they like the Japanese manga. But most of them read, it's all the newer stuff. And to me, a lot of it all just kind of looks the same.
Right.
So I definitely am going to be pointing them in this direction. Most of them probably do know Lupin the Third. He had a very long-running anime series. It aired on like Adult Swim and stuff too. So, or even Toonami, I think, before Adult Swim. Okay. So it's been around. People like it. Gets my thumbs up. It's good stuff.
Thumbs up. Where it all started.
Yeah.
The forefathers of manga.
That's right. Next up, completely different direction. This is definitely a book that I imagine a lot of people aren't going to know much about. This book is called Three Rocks, the life story of Ernie Bushmiller, the man who created Nancy. Now, Nan, you are probably sitting here going, Who the F is Nancy?
I've seen this character before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've really read, but I've seen the character.
So Nancy was a comic book strip that started in the early 30s. I want to say like 33
Okay.
by cartoonist Ernie Bushmiller. And it is it was a very long-running strip. It was very successful, like one of the most popular comic book strips of the time. But like it predates Peanuts. It predates a lot. Like Peanuts started in 50.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for a long time. Ernie Bushmiller died in 1982,
Okay.
like at the height of the success of Nancy.
Really?
And somebody else took over and continued to do Nancy comics. It was a comic strip in newspapers.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just lost some of its, like, it didn't have the cachet that it had from the original creator, Ernie Bushmiller.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you change it.
Exactly.
Creativity's
But
different.
it did kind of get new life in 2018, some years ago. It got restarted with, and I've already forgotten her name, so I feel really bad. I think her name is Olivia something. But it was kind of a big deal because it was like, they wanted to get a female cartoonist to make the book, because it's about Nancy, it's about a little girl.
Yeah.
And so that comic strip has kind of blown up and been like the new great comic book
new
strip.
Nancy.
Yeah, because it's like weird, it's a little surreal,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
how the comics all were, like the old
Hey,
stuff.
Serena.
But this book specifically is a biography of Ernie Bushmiller. And so this is a book by Bill Griffith, who is a pretty successful and famous alt-comic cartoonist himself.
Got you.
And so this is a biography that he made that just tells everything about Ernie Bushmiller's life, the creation of Nancy, just what makes Nancy great. And it looks amazing. I haven't read it yet. I am super excited to read it because I love biographies. And I love biographies about cartoonists because it's something that you pretty much only ever read about in cartoon form. Because, like, you know what? I like movies too, but Disney's not making a lot of movies about famous cartoonists and stuff.
No,
that's
not
usually
really.
the type of thing that you can only read in the form of a cartoon. But yeah, this looks like an excellent book. Super excited to read it. Highly recommend it. I'm sure, like I said, I haven't read it yet, but if you want to know more about just the style of the time, like cartoonists, because like, man, it's weird to think about. 33 was like 90 years ago.
Wow.
The world was a different place.
Different stuff going on.
And so I always find it fascinating
Not
to
as much
get
internet coverage.
Yeah, it's like my AT&T signal just
It was
back
bad.
then it was terrible.
bad. You couldn't get a signal.
But I really like history, as I've talked about before. I like history comics, and what I like about biography specifically is it kind of gives you like a unique window into history where you can experience it through a specific person, and it gives you a different perspective on, because it's like you can read facts in a book and you can read like this happened and this happened and this happened. But you know what? My Tinder profile was actually not something too far off from that. But I had to cancel. I had to close my Tinder profile when I got married. So don't tell my wife that it's still open. Officially, it's canceled. But yeah, I like biographies because
So many matches.
it gives. Oh, dude, I don't even want to talk about that.
Maybe we should.
I led my first date with my now wife at the time.
Yeah.
And she said before me, she said, I really like comic books, and my dad's a comic book collector. And before I even said a word, I was like, oh, this is in the bag.
Yeah. We're done.
I was like, I got this. It was the biggest confidence boost I've ever had on a date.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for real.
Perfection.
So now we're going to talk about some of the issues.
The Omega Man.
Now, Dan, you know I like my facsimile reprints of classic comics.
This looks like a classic
This
comic.
is a classic reprint. This is the Omega Man issue number 3 from 1982. Dan, can you tell me which famous character is on this cover, making his debut, first appearance?
Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Man, that's actually a pretty good guess. But you're also way off.
Okay.
No, this is the main man, the bounty hunter Bastich. Lobo.
Sure. I have no idea.
Oh,
Yes.
This is very famous intergalactic bounty hunter Lobo.
Lobo. Yeah. What's he doing to this young lady?
So
here is
he's
what I wanna
riding around
know.
on his like space motorcycle,
Yeah.
and he's got her chained to the handlebars.
Okay.
Probably gonna deliver her to whoever has the bounty out on her.
Seems a little extreme to me, but
You know, he's an extreme
the
extreme
80s,
dude.
the 80s was a very different time.
Yeah, yeah. I love reading these older books because it's always fascinating to me when you see early appearances of a character and they don't even like you can't even recognize them compared to how they are in like the modern
How they exist
as they
currently.
slowly developed over time.
Is that
So we talked about this.
Yeah.
DC's facsimile game is much stronger than Marvel's. I like this paper. Yeah, I know. I look, my shirt. I'm wearing a shirt that says Art Critic on it, and I'm living up to it right now.
He would know. It's on the good.
It's on the good paper.
like
it recreates the
pulp.
yeah. It's matte. It's not glossy. It looks like the book would have actually looked and felt and even smelled.
Yeah, it's got that.
Give him a
Comic book smell.
yeah, got that comic book smell. But yeah, so Lobo is a character that he's a pretty famous character now. He appears, he's like a Superman villain, but he's really just like a general villain. He's an intergalactic bounty hunter. Whenever you need some big bad
Somebody
guy
picked
to,
up.
but he was kind of I don't want to say reinvented, but like his style was kind of defined by in the later 80s by Simon Bisley, who really gave him that like biker look, like the leather jacket,
Yeah.
and just like huge muscles.
I mean, he's a bounty hunter. That's what he's got to look
exactly.
like.
So he looked more like
Yeah.
a classic Hell's Angel
So
type
you
of
think
guy.
Dog the Bounty Hunter like based his whole life off of Lobo?
It's possible, yeah. Lobo is what is Lobo?
Just wolf.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
So I've heard tell
Whoa,
that
whoa.
so here you go.
Whoa.
So there's Lobo right there.
Whoa.
He's wearing like spandex, like it's space, like that's what
Yeah,
people.
sure.
He looks like a
Sure.
Star Trek character,
Looks
but
like a
from
Star
like the
Trek
first Star Trek. You know, actually no, that could also show up in Next Gen. I
Yeah,
believe that.
he's let's talk about this guy who's a cowboy
yeah.
robot situation. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean they're aliens. They're weird creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read this issue yet. I'm really actually not familiar with Omega Men in the slightest.
Oh,
I know
okay.
that it's it's written by Keith Giffen, who is a pretty famous creator, and I like his work. He's also an artist, but he's not drawing this.
I'm gonna tell you.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. It's not written by him. He's the artist on this.
I love this. The old school ads.
Man, look at that, an Atari
In
ad.
television.
Yeah.
It's not even Atari.
Or it's
That's
not
in
Atari. It's in television. I just
In television,
shows what I
was
know.
like the not as good Atari, and it had like the little paddle controller. Yeah, awful. My friend had one, and I had the Atari, but I didn't get to play it very often because my dad didn't want me to connect it to the TV because he said it would ruin the TV. So I had an Atari. I didn't get to use it very often, but the television was different, and the game sucks. Back to Lobo.
Well, I don't have much else to say about it, other than I always like to point out these facsimiles when they come out. It's funny to me seeing old Lobo, like before he became like the main man, you know,
the man that we know,
the man that we know, yeah. But it is interesting. I've been told that the character.
Look like Lobo?
I have been told that. I've been told that the character started out, he was kind of, as he developed, he became like a parody of Wolverine, like just like the ultimate,
Yeah,
like
BA.
BA. Yeah, I was trying to think of
Yeah,
the
you're trying
appropriate.
not to say,
yeah, but you know, like
Tough
chomping
guy,
the cigar.
yeah.
Yeah, tough guy, the ultimate tough guy, and that's kind of. I mean, you can see a little bit of it here. Like if you read the issue, I'm sure there's like the seeds of that personality. But like looking at it, I saw that this was a facsimile, and I'm like, oh, cool, a facsimile. Why are they reprinting this issue? What's up with that? And it wasn't until after I like actually checked what was going on. I was like, oh, that's Lobo. That's the first appearance of Lobo. I didn't even notice it like
he
from
looks
looking
so
at the
different.
cover.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
awesome.
very cool comic. So I got another one here that I just want to briefly mention. I haven't read this one, but
What If?
This is a What If. We talked about the What If with Spider-Gwen, I think last week, did we? I don't remember.
I feel like, yeah, we did. We did.
But this one, I like this cover. This is an homage cover to a classic. I believe it is. It's an homage to Kirby, actually.
It's a legit homage.
It's a legit
to
homage to Kirby because this is
Love an homage. To
mimicking the famous cover of I think it's Fantastic Four 51. That's This Man, This Monster is the name of that issue, and this is basically what if Thing became Venom. I think.
Yeah. The Venom symbiote attached itself.
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
Thing.
which is a fun enough concept. That again, I talked about it last week. It just feels like classic what if stories, and I love classic what ifs. One thing I just want to note: I haven't read this one yet, but this book is drawn by a gentleman by the name of Jethro Morales, or Morales. I'm not entirely sure how he pronounces it. Well, I actually kind of know Jethro.
Oh.
10 years ago, I worked on a webcomic called Zero's Heroes that I wrote. And when I collected it into a trade paperback, I had some exclusive new comics that were in the back of it that weren't on the internet. And one of them was drawn by Jethro Morales. I've worked with him, he was the artist in my book, and it's so awesome seeing him now 10 years later working for Marvel and like making it in the industry.
Yeah, that's
so
really cool.
I'm really excited to read this. I knew it back then. He was a great artist, and it's nice to see that validation on my part that I was able to recognize this guy's going places.
He's going places.
Yeah.
He's going to be big, I tell you.
Yeah, this guy's got what it takes. He's a great artist. He's done some work with me before in the past, and it is just so cool to see him working in a Marvel book. So congrats to him. Congrats to Jethro. I'm looking forward to reading this one. Now let's move on to some books that I actually have read.
Yes. The Sacrifice.
So there's a new #1 coming out this week, The Sacrificers. It's written by Rick Remender, who is a writer that I like. He's done a lot of stuff. It's drawn by Max Fiumara. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I got a trio of fantasy barbarian sword and sorcery type of comics that we're going to talk about. First one is The Sacrificers. It's a pretty straightforward setup. If you there was a Free Comic Book Day put out a preview of this, and I read it and I had no idea what was going on. There's these bird people, and they're kind of it looks like it's setting up like it's a parochial kind of religious family that's sitting down to pray for dinner, and then this kid that they forced to stay outside, they see him in the window, and the dad goes to the barn and beats him.
Jeez.
And it's like, what's going on there,
Bird on bird violence.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's all that was in the preview, and I was like, what is all with this?
Yeah. It's not telling me anything.
It's not telling me anything. So then it kind of does a little bit more world building. We see these god type characters, and essentially what it looks like is they demand sacrifice from all these different families in the area, and so the dad was forcing the son to stay separate from the family to make it easier for them to say goodbye, because they were recognizing that it's a huge sacrifice what this kid is doing.
Right.
But if they get too attached to him, then it could all go wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe they might not want him to go, and in order to maintain, peace and harmony with the gods, you just have to do it. Really great art.
Wild.
It looks like it's a pretty heavy story. I really like the art.
A little bit.
It's a little heavy, I feel like it's still kind of early to tell. It's hard to glean any motivations from this setup. I can't tell. It looks like there's kind of set up to be some bait and switch. The story starts where it's the evil dad that beats the son, and then it's okay, but there was an ulterior motive for why he was doing it. It's he secretly cares about him more than any of them, and so it's I'm curious to see where it goes. Looks really good though. I love the art. Interesting setup for a weird, bizarre fantasy story. And there's I didn't even talk about this character. She's the rebellious daughter of the evil god. So sure, she's gonna get involved in some way. Yeah. But good book. I recommend it. If you read comics, you're probably familiar with Rick Remender. He's been around for probably almost 20 years now as a pretty successful writer. Done a lot of stuff at Marvel and Image and such. So yeah, good first issue. Next up, I think this is a book that I was pretty excited about. Conan the Barbarian. We love Conan. I love Conan.
he's a guy.
He's a dude.
He's a dude with a page boy haircut.
That He-Man haircut.
Wow.
So this is kind of a big deal. This book, Conan, just last year or this year went into the public domain, and
So it means
anybody can make a Conan comic,
content.
right?
Okay,
So previously, Marvel held the license because Marvel, if you don't mind me going into a little bit of the history.
I love the history.
Roy Thomas kind of saved Marvel Comics in the 70s from going out of business by pushing to do licensed comics content. And one of the first things they got, eventually they got Star Wars, and that was the big one.
Sure. Yeah,
but
that's
before Star Wars,
always helpful.
yes, it was pretty popular. But before Star Wars, he pushed to get the Conan license, which at the time was, it was like pulp books, and they weren't really for kids, and they weren't sure, like they were uncertain if they could even sell them. But he pushed for it, and it became kind of a staple of Marvel Comics. One of the most famous artists to ever work for Marvel, Barry Windsor Smith, got his start doing the first Conan the Barbarian, and it went for a long time. Like they did Conan comics up until the 90s before eventually stopping because they just got rid of all of their licensed stuff.
Yeah.
Probably when they went bankrupt in '96. But so other publishers have been publishing Conan content for a while, but Marvel recently got it back. I would say recently, like within the last 10 years.
Sure, yeah.
But now it's in the public domain, and so Marvel just said, nah. They just canceled their Conan book because they're not going to be bothered to produce and publish something that they don't have complete control over. Yeah. And so that leads us to this Conan series by Titan Comics. And this cover is by Dan Panosian, who is the writer and artist that we talked about last week. He did that Alice Never After comic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, really cool.
Dan Panosian, awesome artist. He's not doing the interior art here. The interior art is by Rob De La Torre. But it is, I guess I should be a little careful on which pages I show here. Because there is like this, I'm very happy to say that this comic is like full on Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Which I was a little concerned about because it is written by Jim Zub, who is a writer that I actually really like. He wrote some of the Conan the Barbarian comics for Marvel Comics in the last several years. But I have to say, they weren't my favorite Conan comics. I like his work a lot. He did a book called Skull Kickers that is really good. It's like a comedy, like a fantasy barbarian comedy. And he also does a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons comics. And he's very like ingrained into the fantasy comic setting.
Yeah.
But he was following Jason Aaron's run at Marvel, and Jason Aaron's run was pretty solid. I always just felt like it kind of suffered from not really getting to really be Conan because it's a Marvel book, and so they kind of have to keep that tone.
Back just a
that
little bit.
Tone is like just on the verge of being all ages. And so there was another Titan. I think it was Titan. Actually, I've already forgotten. No, I don't think it was Titan. There was another publisher that was publishing a Conan book called The Cimmerian, and what they were doing was publishing the original Robert Howard books, but with artists kind of interpreting them.
Just trying to zoom in a little bit.
So, oh yeah, I gotcha. But so I feel like this book is a good. It feels more like the Cimmerian comics with the art. Like the art is just really, really good. This comic looks great. Feels gritty the way a Conan comic should. Jim, I think he's reaching for that classic Robert Howard tone, and I feel like he's not hindered by being at Marvel, so he can really go for it if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like just like really like go all out with.
Doesn't have anybody telling him to dial it back.
Yeah. It's his Marvel Conan always felt a little bit more like Conan the Destroyer movie compared to the Conan the Barbarian movie. Whereas I feel like here he's just going for classic Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
Looks great. If you like Conan, you're probably already gonna check this out, but I highly recommend it. It is good barbarian comics, and I like barbarian comics.
Gotta get a good barbarian comic every once in a while.
That's you know what? There's a lot of them this week.
A lot of them.
If Conan the Barbarian isn't enough for you, we also got Fire and Ice.
Fire and Ice.
Now, do you recognize this, Dan? Fire and Ice.
Nope.
This is a cover. This character was created by Frank Frazetta, and it was an animated movie in the early '80s. I want to say '82. by Ralph Bakshi. You're probably familiar with Ralph Bakshi. He did the Fritz the Cat movie, and he did some other like weird movies. He did like a movie called The Wizard. He did this Fire and Ice movie.
It seems familiar. It's one of those where they had people acted out and then they animated
Is-
over it.
They
Yeah.
rotoscoped it.
Rotoscope,
Yes,
thank you.
rotoscoping is and so that's what this was, Fire and Ice. So this is a prequel series to the Fire and Ice movie about these characters that were created by Frank Frazetta, and it is written by Bill Willingham, who is a very, very famous comic book writer. He does the comic book series Fables, which is one of the best comics ever made. And this,
Ever?
yeah, it is. It's one of it's long, very long running. Like it's so huge. I think they got 3 of those compendiums in print right now.
Oh damn. Okay.
But yeah, it's really good. Like I like Bill Willingham as a writer a lot. The art is pretty good too, and I feel like it's just hard to follow up the Conan the Barbarian artist, which I think I might have liked the Conan the Barbarian artist more than this.
Yeah.
But this is pretty solid. It's also really good. It's got just like barbarian violence in it.
Yeah,
but
barbarian violence.
this is in like a full-on fantasy setting. So there's
Yeah.
magic, and there's wizards and witches,
Yeah.
and just
All the good stuff.
all that good stuff. So yeah, this one is really, really good. If you've not seen Fire and Ice, I recommend it, but I'm not going to pretend it's like a great movie,
Right.
which is pretty much what I say about all Ralph Bakshi movies. Like I really, really like them, but they're not
Yeah.
they're not that great. Just they're weird.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah. So this is people have been pretty high on Frank Frazetta stuff lately. Like the what's that other publisher? I've talked about it a few times. Opus, I think. And they do that Death Dealer comic, which is based
Yeah.
off of Frank Frazetta
Yeah.
character. The Mothman comic, I think we talked about that. Yes,
Weird but fun.
weird but fun. That is exactly what they are. So I mean,
Just like me.
I would say you're more weird,
But not very
but not
fun.
very fun.
That's fair. Too.
Depending on if you're on the receiving end of the
Depending
weirdness.
on the day. Yeah.
Depending on the day.
I
yeah.
feel you. I feel you.
But yeah, so yeah, this is definitely something worth checking out.
Watched Fire and Ice recently. Sick.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, you talk about the next one. I'm going to go get our special guests real quick.
Okay.
Let's see if they're available.
Yeah.
And you talk about that.
I'm going
last
to talk
book.
about, so as you know, we pick, yeah, you can,
Do that. There you go.
there we go. As you know, I have a coworker pick out a comic for me to take a look at, and today we're talking about Christopher Chaos, or actually, I should say the full title of it is The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. And this is the 2nd issue. I did not read issue 1, which I thought it would be a good experiment to just jump into issue 2 and see if it made sense. And I'm happy to say that it did. This is based off a series by James Tynion, and it is written by Tate Brombell and art by Isaac Goodhart. This book, I liked it. It's just your pretty standard superhero setting, but instead of superheroes, it's all just like supernatural stuff. So there's like instead of like superpower tropes, it's like vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. Yeah, I as a superhero snob, I do kind of like look at that and I'm like, a twist on superheroes by making them cool, But the art is really good. This book looks really good. I like how these like the main character has like the ability to reanimate things, and so he's got all these little Frankenstein monsters that he reanimates, and he's got like a little pet pigeon that that follows him around. So yeah, this is definitely, if you like kind of like weird macabre stuff, definitely worth maybe taking a look into. All right, do you need me to get out of the way here?
No, I say, what if we all fit inside?
Oh,
the screen?
let's squeeze. All right, let's squeeze in. Come on,
Let's get-
special guest.
I'm not mic'd up, so I'll just like hang out
Let's
here.
get cozy.
Okay.
So everybody, I don't know if you can kind of hear me. Look, see if we get meters going.
Yeah.
We've got Susie here, and she's going to talk about Wayne Family Adventures. And why are we talking about this book?
Because it's a cool book.
But why? What do you have? Why are we talking to
What,
you about
what
it?
makes this book special compared to the million other Batman books that are on the stands right now?
Yes.
Well, something that's fun about this book is that I got to draw some of the backgrounds for the book.
Hey!
Drew the backgrounds for the book, and this is based off of like a webcomic, right?
Yes, so originally this was a webtoon. And so it is Webtoon's first collaboration with DC Comics. They also went on to do Vixen New York City and Zatanna and then Red Hood and the Outlaws. So this was their first one, and I really enjoy it, even though like
You enjoy your own work?
like I didn't want to be.
Because I do.
I mean, it's okay to
everything
enjoy
I
your
do
own
is
work.
the best thing that's ever
Fine.
been
No,
done.
well, what I love about it is like the writing and everything about that. It's about like it's for Batman fans
It is
by
pretty awesome.
Batman
Hey,
fans.
Yeah. So like, how long have you been working on the comic strip? Because it's been online, and this is a compilation of everything that's been online. Right?
Yes, so it's been going for a few years. So I want to say I started in November 2021.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So explain to me the
Explain to them.
explain to the audience through me the feeling that you get from seeing something that you've been working on for that long, seeing it in print.
Well, let's take a look at it too.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's put
yeah.
it down here.
Here we go.
They just got.
Yeah, so you can scroll through it and everything.
Look at that. So I think you were explaining to us a feeling.
Oh, yes. Well, it's definitely.
I'm gonna guess you actually didn't like seeing it in print.
Well, what's cool is that this was actually the first episode that I contributed to right here.
Oh, cool.
So
awesome.
this was actually my art test for the series.
Really?
And so when they were launching, they said we're doing this series. We haven't like announced it yet, but we'd love to see if like you were a good match. And so we started with that episode, and I don't know, it's like a bunch of like slice of life comedy comics about like the Bat family.
Okay.
And so if you're looking for something that's more like wholesome family fun, then this is what you're going for.
So whenever you did the tests, were they like, "Hey, just do this for free, and we'll give you exposure"? Did they
No.
do one of those to you? Like, we'll give you exposure, so you do the work for free, and then we'll decide if we want more.
No, they were actually really super cool about
Okay.
it. It was a paid test.
Good.
I don't know how any of that works.
Are we still actually showing it, or?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
there we go.
Well, you know, like whatever's there is what people are seeing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Book.
Book, Susie. Book, Susie. Book,
Oh, that's
Susie.
very
Book,
intimidating.
Susie.
Are you still working on this series?
Yes, we are. We're still working on season 2, and this is actually going to be ongoing for print. So another copy is going to be in October for volume 2.
Very cool.
For even more. So you get to see more of my Sailor Moon backgrounds for Nightwing. It's always fun.
Nice. I'm seeing.
I like to give them. Hold on. Let me find
Yeah,
the
find a page.
page you're
find the
talking about
bubbles. It's the Disco Wing, and they gave them a splash page, which I was very happy about.
here. Disco Wing.
Wait, it is.
Find it.
Oh, there
Found
we
it.
go.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
the little.
Oh wow.
It got all the little rainbow bubbles.
Yeah, the
That's
circles
amazing.
there. Yeah, that's appropriate because Dick Grayson is dreamy.
Agreed.
He's got that booty.
He does. That's how they've been selling it for the last couple of years. Let me
Yes.
tell you.
Now, if someone comes into the store and buys this, will you autograph the book for them?
Yes, I will sign a random background.
Just sign a random
Or draw
background.
something stupid in the
Or
background.
maybe draw a silly character. The bonus of having excellent artists on staff is that they just draw things on stuff, and you're always like, "Hey, draw on this bag."
Yeah.
And we have a good time doing that. It's a lot of fun, and I think the book is awesome. And if you come by here, you can meet Susie, talk to the artist. I mean, maybe, I don't know, sit down and like catch up. I don't know.
Ask her for art tips. Bring in your
Yeah.
portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean she's on the clock, so.
Yeah, it's,
And I have to be nice.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. All jokes aside, excellent work, Susie. We're all
Yes.
super proud of you.
Thank you.
We
Yeah,
think
thank
it's
you
a
for
great
having
book.
me on the show.
I haven't read it at all because I just don't care for that kind of thing. But, you know, I think
It's okay.
I think it looks excellent. think
I
it's
made you buy a Rick and Morty comic, and so
nice.
that is the highest
I
honor
did
of all.
buy the Rick and Morty comic that we showed last week, and we
Yes.
told you that Susie did all the artwork for the last story in that book, and so she's just killing it.
Man, 2
and
weeks in a row,
2
we got
weeks in
Susie
a row,
books.
Susie
Yay!
content.
Ridiculous.
Excellent.
So fun. All right.
Well, I think that's everything
I
that we
think
got
so,
for the show.
yeah.
Like, you don't have to run off because we're about to just shut the whole thing
Oh,
down.
perfect.
So thanks for hanging out with us. Go buy some comic books. If you don't buy them here, buy them somewhere. You're going to find something you like. There's something
Yeah.
for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Buy Batman or Fire and Ice.
There you go. That's
Yes.
a good one. Fire and Ice.
If I could read, this would be great. I'll see you guys later. Everyone say bye.
Bye.